Hello, you have arrived at the Earthworm Slumber Party,
where we are exploring big ideas playfully.
My name is Nisha, and I love cheese.
My name is Opulence, and I also love cheese.
We're going to talk about cheese today.
I am so excited.
Yay. So, before we get into cheese, I think you can compost cheese, maybe. Can you?
It's interesting, right? Because cheese has bacteria in it. So it is a byproduct of not compost necessarily, but it is actively transforming.
Yes,
it's transformed milk.
It's transformed my life. So, let's be real.
Viva l'omelette du fromage.
Je t'aime fromage.
Yum. Okay, Yum. So before we talk about cheese, we have to ask, what are you composting, Nisha?
What am I composting? That's an excellent question. I am composting my grandmother relationship. I realized when I was on a trip to Santa Fe a few weeks ago, I went to this gift shop. It was specifically artifacts from the Zuni people. And they had, the reason my partner and I were curious about this shop is because it said, I don't know if it said like artifacts or jewelry or whatever, and then it said fetishes. And we were like, fetishes? What's that? But it is an actual thing where they're objects that were created by the Zuni people. It could be an animal or something like that you might want to keep at your altar, and they all represent different types of ideas or qualities. And the person who was the salesperson, he was just like really intentional and thoughtful. And he said that, usually when people come here, they see a fetish that calls to them. And it's something that could be really healing for them. And I immediately looked at this one really beautiful fetish of this looked like a woman. What I was looking at wasn't animals. It was like these different types of women, femme types of figures. And he was talking about like what a hawk could be, what a bull could be. And I was like, well, what are these? And he said, well, these are different phases of like womanhood, essentially. Whoa. And how there's like the daughter who is like, and I'm probably not explaining this well, so you can this might be an update at some point in the future, but basically like there was the daughter, the mother, and the grandmother. And the one I was looking at was the grandmother. And that felt so resonant for me because it's about the wisdom of a grandma. And for me, I feel like that's something I've missed from my life that has not existed because my mom's mother, died when I was in high school, and she lived in India. So we didn't have like a close relationship. And my dad's mother died before I was born.
Wow.
And, it made me realize how I yearn for that relationship in my life, and I didn't have it.
Wow. Yes.
So I actually ended up getting this fetish. I actually got earrings and then a fetish of the grandmother figure, and I put it by my altar, and it just makes me feel so much more connected to that type of wise, like grandmother maternal energy.
Wow, Nisha, thank you for sharing. This is such a beautiful story, and I actually have so many reactions. Okay, so one, love the curiosity. I love that you and your partner were like, what's going on with that word fetish? Yeah. Let's go.
Yeah.
And so just so I'm understanding, it sounds like the fetishes were statues.
Yeah.
Or artifacts.
Yeah, little artifacts. They were like small, like maybe depending on, there could be larger ones, but they weren't usually larger than like I think 5 or 6 inches. And they were made of a certain like type of stone or material like turquoise or lapis or sterling silver. Yeah.
Wow, I really have an image of my head. I have to say that when you first started telling the story and you were using the term artifact, it did like bring up anger in my body, and it brought up like, so funny. It was like all these news stories, populated in my head that were like, just thinking about that word artifact and the relationship between artifacts, stolen objects, and museums. Mm-hmm. But then as you continued in the story, I was like, oh, this is actually a really different experience. And I think one of the things I loved as you were sharing was thinking about self-divination, thinking about that moment, like whether you were going to a crystal store or a store like this, where there's something that will draw to you, catch your eye, pull to you. And that will be an indicator of the medicine you need. Something I love about that is that it's very much the relationship between noticing desire in our body or noticing what catches our attention and honoring that as being reflective and being able to learn about ourselves through that. I think what I love about it is because sometimes we're like, oh, I have to go to the psychic, I have to go to the tarot reader, I need to go to this other person to learn more. And that is valuable. But moments like this really also show us that like we can find that knowledge in ourselves. And it actually reminds me of, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the word for it. But that thing, it's like water divining where there's a forked stick and people use the stick to find water.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really forgetting the word. But I think that practice is so powerful. I also just want to name, I feel really moved because what I hear you naming is connecting with the archetype of the grandmother and bringing that medicine into your life and intentionally wanting to connect with it. I'm so moved by that because my relationship with my grandmothers was that my mother's mom lived in India, kind of similar to yours. And when I would visit her, I didn't speak Hindi. And she had a hunched back. And so I was actually eye to eye to her when I was like 5 years old.
Wow.
And I would reach over and tickle her. I would tickle her cheeks and we would just tickle each other and laugh. I mean, she had a like very intimate relationship, you know, in the way that kids are just able to play.
Yeah.
My father's mom actually lived with me for a lot of my life. And I kind of have a complicated relationship to her. But what I think is so powerful and where I really connect with your story, and I hear you composting, it's interesting. It's like you're composting the absence of the energy from your life and you're calling in the presence. I think that's beautiful. What it reminds me of is that I have been really exploring forgiveness. And I was talking to someone about how do we forgive our elders that have harmed us. And I was saying that I've been going through this process with anger and harm where I let myself be in my anger. I safely express and experience my anger. And that has allowed me to actually release into love and compassion. And I find myself when I'm in anger moving through the depth of my hurt, which will take me to my youngest self. And then through that process, I find myself transcending into the role of the grandmother. And that's what I was telling someone, that like, as I go through this process and with an elder who might be via age my grandmother, I am able to see them as a child that is hurting, and that being what is hurting me. I'm able to hold them with the love of the larger love and perspective of the grandmother and be their elder. I'm sharing this, and a part of what I love about it is that it's so circular, you know, like that children and elders are actually very connected, and going through that transcendence forgiveness process allows you to tap into that larger perspective of love. Did all that make sense? I know that's kind of a complex concept.
I mean, I loved all of that. And I really, you know, when you said that circular thing, it made me think of an image I've seen about how basically when a person is pregnant, they are actually even holding the sexual, the eggs, I think, of the child. Yeah. And so that is like generationally, you know, in their body. And so, yeah, I think that all makes total sense. And just that, I really like how you talked about that emotional evolution of shifting to that grandmother energy. I thought that was really, really beautiful to think about. I too, my mom's mother also didn't know much English. She only spoke Gujarati and know like a few English words. My grandfather knew some more. So I felt very limited, even in the limited time I was with her. And she did come to the States and took care of us, I think maybe for, I don't know, a year or so, but I was like 5, so I was so young, and they were good experiences overall, but like I just didn't have that intimacy I would have wished for. So yeah, I resonate, I relate, and I really love that reflection of the anger and the compassion and connecting those two things together. I've been thinking a lot about anger, especially as a South Asian, and how I'm often made to not feel my anger or not be in my anger because that's too emotional, or I have to adjust, around other people and not express my own anger. I've often thought that I don't have anger, I have sadness, things that I've said, but that's not true. I do have anger. I mean, I'm a human being who, was socialized as a girl, a woman, someone who was like told to push down my feelings. And I feel like only recently am I actually taking stock of when I might feel anger and I'm immediately pushing it down or dismissing it.
I'm so glad we're talking about all these things. I think it's so important. I don't think you are the only person who has had that sentiment of, I can't feel this emotion. It's going to make other people uncomfortable. Or even for myself, I'm often like, is it safe for me to express and be in this full expression? Will I cause harm? And what I'm learning is, and I'm finding, I've been experiencing and I'm continuing to nurture relationships where I'm not harming someone, but I can be angry at them and they don't perceive that as me harming them.
Yeah.
Detangling all that. And similarly with my emotions, learning that anger is like a color and colors are neutral. We can let go of like them having a moral or morality or value judgment. So I'm really glad that we are talking about these things. These things are things I'm constantly thinking of because I'm always thinking like, yeah, how can we experience our emotions, live authentic lives, have healthy relationships, have full expressions of emotions? Like, what is the wisdom that's lost around how we love and care for each other? So that is part of also why I'm leaning on that grandmother energy. And this actually all really connects to what I'm composting.
Yes.
Which is that kind of two emotions, but they're related. So one is the experience of feeling angry that something is happening to me. I would even say maybe that's bitterness, right? And the other thing I'm composting related to this is inconvenience. The idea that like, I don't have time to be in conflict with this person. This is holding me back. This is so inconvenient. My life could be so good if we weren't doing this. Similarly, that emotion of I'm angry that this is happening. I would be so happy if this wasn't happening to me. Those things are really easy to feel. They're really easy to feel for me. They're like just stories or thoughts that will come up and they make me more righteous in my anger. It's like wind in like air being pumped into the flames. And they make me feel empowered to like bite someone's head off. I'm like, they deserve this. I'm so angry. And so I'm trying to like kind of release some of that and be like, while there's another reality where maybe these things didn't have to happen, they've happened, and how can I accept that? And then I'm also, I'm like leaning into that idea that like, and I feel I saw this on social media, so I'll add in where I saw it from in the show notes, but I saw someone saying like, our relationships get to be inconvenient, and this idea that they're not convenient is disposability culture entering our consciousness. And when I reference disposability culture, I'm not just talking about like quote unquote cancel culture. I'm talking about like disposable plates, disposable forks, like creating trash, and then also just not having energy to tend to people, and so just like thinking like, okay, what does it look like to have less resistance around this experience? How can I honor my hurt and my anger and my disappointment, but not go to a place that's like, this would just be more convenient if it wasn't happening,
Yeah, so much there. Thank you so much for sharing that. Especially that inconvenience, the disposability culture. I had not heard of that before. So thank you so much for adding that term in. I mean, when you said like, this is trash, I'm like, so like, we're also thinking about what's like relationship trash, right? Like, I'm going to throw this relationship in the garbage. And I think it's so true. And it's really interesting. I'm not sure if you've seen this Opulence, but like in the kind of self-help, self-care, wellness, like social media world, there's a lot out there around like what's your capacity and make boundaries. And I think we can often mistake that for just putting something in the relationship garbage, you know? And there's one thing about capacity, but there's also like being with discomfort, you know? And that when you say like avoiding inconvenience, that's kind of also like, I feel like those are very connected. Like I'm not going to allow myself to, or I don't want to be with this discomfort. This is just too annoying versus this is a relationship that I have with another human. And what does this anger mean? Because I've often heard anger is like a sign that maybe your boundaries have been violated. So that's not necessarily something where you just walk away. It's something to reconsider what boundaries you might need to make in this situation in a way that you can actually be close and in relationship with this person in a way that feels good to your soul and yourself. And, you know, how can I not throw this relationship in the garbage, but how can I actually have regard for it? You know, and say like, this is how this relationship has served me. And now what's next?
Absolutely, Nisha. Thank you so much for bringing out the nuance, because there are seeds of truth and all of these things are tools, you know? So it's like, absolutely, like, is trash real? This concept that we can throw something away. It's like you throw it away and then it's in the ocean and on your beach in 2 months' time. Right?
Exactly.
Like
it comes back.
It comes back. And even if it doesn't come back to you, it's in the world. So what's our accountability to that? Sometimes that stresses me out. So maybe we can take a little breath here.
Yeah.
Just to know that like this culture of trash, of disposability, it's something that was co-created and it's something we're going to solve together. And it doesn't live on any one of us like that, but it's a collective shift. And sometimes just unpacking these things, expanding our capacity for discomfort can be a part of that collective shift. And similarly, it is okay for us to say, wow, this person is bringing a lot of waves. They're asking a lot of energy from me in a time where I'm already stretched. Mm-hmm. So I need to come back to this, but for now I need a boundary. It's all valid. It's all nuanced. And I really appreciate you going there with me. But I want to get back to the topic at hand.
I know.
Which is cheese.
Most importantly, I'm like, this is very serious, but we got to really talk seriously about cheese.
Cheese is more serious. And I just want to name that our beloved audio producers are French, and that's why we keep saying fromage.
Yes, exactly. Fromage. I mean, it sounds like a distinguished cheese.
Okay, so don't keep me on the edge of my seat. Are you going to tell me this story or what?
Here's the story. So I have a long love affair with cheese, which I think is really interesting ancestrally, because I don't know about you, but I think there's like paneer, but in usually mostly like South Asian foods, there's not too much cheese product.
It's so funny you say that, because when I went to India most recently, my mom, you know, classic Indian mom, has brought all these gifts from America.
Of course.
My cousin is like, did you bring the Velveeta cheese? And like the American processed cheese and all of those things. My family has a funny relationship to it. You know, it's like American commodity because it's not an Indian thing.
Yeah, definitely. But speaking of processed cheese, that's where my love affair began. It began with Kraft American singles. I would love, like, usually, you know, we had it in the home to make sandwiches for the week for me to take to school or whatever.
Same.
And one thing that I loved doing, and it was in secret, was I loved taking the square, the yellow, you know, I don't know, XC40 or whatever color that was on the ingredients list. You got that, you know, fake yellow.
Right.
And like probably the wrong yellow. And folding it in half. And then I'd fold it in half again. Then I'd make it into smaller bits, and then I'd eat them individually for me to feel like I could make it last longer. And I did this in secret. Like if my mom was upstairs or if she was at work, I would just go to there, take out that, you know, that clear, transparent wrapper. I would even put the wrapper like in different like garbage cans so that like she couldn't find it. And I would just fold it so that it could just last forever. So that's really where it began. And it then, you know, transformed to Kraft mac and cheese, which whenever my mom got the generic grocery store mac and cheese, I was just pretty livid because there was nothing like Kraft to me. And then this all culminated between my junior and senior year of college. I was looking for internships, and I was at that time thinking about being in the business world, and I was really interested in like marketing and PR. And I applied for an internship at Kraft Foods as the corporate affairs intern, which,
oh my God.
like what?
The dream.
The dream. Corporate affairs intern at Kraft Foods.
Oh my.
The capitalist dream that I didn't know I had.
The cheese lover's dream.
The cheese lover's
dream.
dream.
So did you get unlimited cheese?
So there was a store. It was, at that time, I think the names of all these companies have changed. I was corporate affairs for Kraft, but it was like the Altria group, I think. And that also at that time, I think it's changed, but it owned Nabisco. So there was a food store because I was in the corporate office. I'm in the suburbs of Chicago. And in the company store, you could get 30% off all products.
Wow.
The funny thing is what I ended up getting the most was Chewy Chips Ahoy because it's so good.
Yum.
I would just like literally, again, in hiding, put it in like my office drawer and just like stick my hand in there because that's really good. Because I mean, it'd be kind of weird to have cheese in a drawer.
You do need covert office snacks.
Yeah. Covert office snacks. Oh my God, it was great. But yeah, it was like a dream come true. I got to work at the place where I had all these childhood memories of, I mean, it sounds silly, but like this was a joy that I had as a child. And, as a child, I really felt very trapped in my home. I love my mom dearly, but I felt like she said no to me a lot, to hang out with friends, to play, to do things I wanted. And so I found solace in this almost like subversive piece of cheese that was not something that was homemade that she made, it was something from the outside, something that was more American, something I could have on my own.
I don't know if I've ever related to any sentence more. Like, thank you for saying it because one, I do have early childhood memories of like unwrapping, like peeling the plastic off, but also like, yes, to the nature of food and subversion. Because I definitely had this moment with myself the other day even. Sorry to hijack your story.
Oh no,
with the story,
I'm excited.
Where I'm living close to home. And so my mom's always trying to give me a lot of dal and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I will take some because I feel so lucky. And I know it's rare and special. And like, it's sad to say, but my mom will not live forever. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I better enjoy this. Mm-hmm. But there's this part of me that never takes too much because I also know that there's a part of me that's going to choose the piece of Little Caesar pizza over the dal. Because sometimes just there's something around the home cooked food that can feel confining. So I'm really grateful you're surfacing this.
Ooh, I relate to that so much because whenever I visit my mom, she always gives me food and lots of Indian food. And like, I'll take it, but I'll also start saying no because I'm like, I am going to have a night where I'm going to want which now I've upgraded to Amy's mac and cheese.
Love this.
And on occasion, a couple times a year, I still have my Kraft to fill that, void, fill that craving.
Nothing like it. Yeah.
Nothing like it. But yeah, I need that sometimes, So yeah, I worked for Kraft Foods in their corporate affairs department, which basically meant, I helped them with like PR and press. I would respond to requests that people from the outside would, write in about. I even coordinated a segment for the Food Network about stovetop stuffing. That was really cool. That's where I learned that there is a profession called food stylists, of people who just like prepare food that's for like TV. I literally saw her like taking a steamer and steaming cheese to melt it on this like filled pepper with stovetop stuffing in it.
What year was this?
This had to be maybe 2002 or 2003.
So pre-Instagram.
Yeah, pre-Instagram. Yes, there are
old
food
school.
stylists. Yeah. So
I'm so sorry.
Ding to ding. It's all good.
It was an alarm to feed my cat. Okay, let's keep going.
I hope your cat's okay.
He is. He's very full.
Very taken care of. Awesome.
Also a cheese lover.
Oh, of course. Oh, really? Can cats have cheese?
It really ruins their digestion, but they're addicted just like humans.
Really?
My cat is, at least.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. Well, now I feel like I have a whole internet hole to explore. Cats loving cheese.
Oh, yeah.
I did not know this.
this helps me know that your cats aren't eating cheese.
No, they're not eating cheese.
My friend actually works in the restaurant industry, and they were my roommate for a while, and every day they would come home and make a little charcuterie for their cats of like meats, nice meats and cheese. And I was just like, these cats eat better than I do.
Oh my God, royal.
Anyways, I took us off topic, but let's get back to this corporate affair and the food stylist.
So that was really cool just to meet the food stylist and see that this profession existed, and which also kind of like planted the seed that at that time. And I'm just realizing this now that like there are other alternate professions and ways to make a living in the world than the ones we think of, like being in corporate affairs at Kraft Foods. And that was like one entry to it for me, which was really cool. So yeah, that's what I did. And it was like almost like this like cheesy dream come true. And this like, it's funny because it felt subversive, but it's not, because it's like the peak America thing.
Corporate affair.
It felt, it is the corporate affair. And that was my corporate affair with cheese.
I love this story. Thank you for sharing about this experience, Nisha. You went behind the curtain. You went into the motherland, Kraft cheese, like the cheese of our childhoods. I think it's so interesting because there is something around mac and cheese that's just so nostalgic and comforting, but also it feels safe. It feels like a safe food. I remember my grandmother made mac and cheese for me once, and she put black pepper and cumin in it. And I just reacted. I was like, that's disgusting. And I was a kid. I was like, this is not the predictable yellow cheese sauce that I desire. Yeah. But now I'm the one that's dressing up the mac and cheese. And I'm like, can I go back in time and value that mac and cheese? Because it sounds kind of good.
Totally.
I love this story also because I don't know if you know this, but I have a little connection to Kraft cheese. It's a little convoluted. But my fun fact about my family, my dad actually came over when he was 8 years old from India to America. His dad was here. My grandfather came over through a PhD program. My dad became a computer engineer, moved to North Carolina, and this is my connection. My dad moved to North Carolina to work for R.J. Reynolds, which was a tobacco company. And then, hilariously, my dad's job got outsourced back to India.
Oh my gosh.
And so he then opened up a furniture store in South Carolina. My whole family moved there. I was like 5 when we moved. And then I was in high school, and my high school economics teacher, I tried to fact check this and I couldn't. So maybe it was a lie. But my high school economics teacher told me that Kraft cheese is owned by R.J. Reynolds. And I think maybe at one time they were. I know you mentioned the Nabisco partnership. I don't know if it was related to that. But he was kind of saying it to us in a subversive way to say like branding matters. And this family household food brand is also owned by this tobacco corporation. So this idea of family values is very much an illusion.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was an interesting connection.
Yeah, well, when you said that, it reminded me that before it was called the Altria Group, it was actually, I think, Philip Morris, which was a tobacco company.
Whoa.
And then they renamed it because it was just getting like a bad reputation. So I wonder maybe there's a relationship between R.J. Reynolds and Philip Morris. We may have to
continue to research. We'll continue to research.
Yeah.
But I also had this thought as you were sharing this story that it's like really powerful for us to be 2 South Asian people talking about food and our love of cheese. And I've never felt so seen as when I hear you talk about how there was this connection to you around rebellion and subversion. But in reality, it was, in another lens, it was an experience of conformity to American culture. And in this, I really hear us kind of pulling apart some of the details of what it means to be born in America, to Indian parents, and the ways that we embrace our culture, but other ways where we tried to push against it, only to find ourselves conforming to another culture.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I don't know about you, but I definitely didn't have the awareness of like what assimilation was. I just, going back, like belonging. I just wanted to belong and like have what other kids had. It was funny that you mentioned your grandmother like adding black pepper and cumin. One time my mom, you're supposed to put like 1/4 of a cup of milk. Like she put like 3/4 of a cup, and it was just like really soupy.
Oh my
and
God.
I was just so devastated because I was like so excited to have Kraft mac and cheese, and she added all this milk, and I was like mad. And that'd be my first memory of like deep anger as a child, because I was like, I wanted my yellow powdered cheese to be thicker, and you did not do it. And she was like, it's not enough. You need more milk. I was just like, oh gosh, it doesn't matter. Forget it. I can't even have this, So yeah, it was rough, but it was that feeling of conformity that I wanted to be subversive, like you said, against like, what I felt like, I was basically having Indian food almost every day for dinner. Home cooked, delicious food that like my mom is an amazing cook. And now I, just like you, I treasure and think about like, yeah, my mom's not going to be here forever, and I'm going to want to have this food as much as I can, but also being like, I want some processed cheese.
Yeah, get me to Little Caesars stuff.
Yeah.
I think I relate so much to what you're sharing about that experience of childhood mac and cheese. What it really wakes up in my body is that experience of just wanting to fit in, just wanting the thing I'm seeing or what other kids are having. My mom actually has a story that they were in the grocery store when my brother was like a toddler, and he grabbed a pack of frozen hot dogs and bit it. And even said to my mom, like, why can't we eat this at home?
Oh my God.
And I really think about how my brother really held it down for us, know, and like really made these. And for me too, like my brother very much served as like, as kind of like a beacon of American culture. But like, just thinking about how confusing it was to see other kids having things like colored drinks, but at home to just have water and milk, right? Yeah. And like, just like to always have the off brand of something. And in some ways, how that even translated to me as my parents not being capable in some way, or like not being able to do things quote unquote right.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting now because as an adult, I'm like, okay, I'm Indian. Where's the cheapest? I'm not going to get the name brand tortilla chips. Like, where can I cut the corner? And so it's just part of that cultural cycle. And I'm so glad that we're exploring that. When you think about this story and everything we've talked about, what are some of your takeaways?
So I think this one really makes me think about just that relationship between subversion and conformity, like what I brought up and you reflected on. Just it makes me want to like journal on that actually. Like, what is that relationship of just wanting to belong, but doing it in a subversive way only just to assimilate. And it also makes me think about preservation and about how my parents probably wanted to preserve as much as they could by not giving me preservatives. And, I think that that's really special and sweet, and probably it was, I don't know if it was easy or hard for them, and to be quite honest, but I feel like, they probably saw their kids just wanting to belong, and they were like, nope, like we're not this way. Not this way. You're not going to belong by having all these preservatives and fake colors. Like, we're going to actually give you real food to eat for dinner. And I was like, I don't want that, So
wow.
Lots of different like kind of relationships to concepts here that I think I'm going to reflect more on. What about you?
I really feel you. There's actually a lot being unpacked for me now. I'm feeling a lot of gratitude for my brother in this moment. You might be listening. Hey, Dave. But part of what I feel in that is like, just thinking about being a kid and seeing things in school, seeing things around the people around me, coming home and feeling like I was in a different world. Just feeling gratitude for my brother for being a bridge between those things and thinking about how that really helped me out psychologically. But then I'm like, dang, is that the price of the oldest sibling? That there's not someone like that for them. So thinking about that, thinking about, I had such a similar experience with my mom, and my mom is even still like, we'll go out to eat and she'll be like, this has all this junk in it. And she's like very anti-preservative. There's a way where I'm like, I like to get down and drink blue slushies sometimes. Like I like to eat the chemicals every now and then. But I think I can only lean into that subversion because of my mom. And I remember the first time I realized when I was talking to my friend about the food, one, I grew up with my mom cooking every day. My mom woke up at like 5 a.m., cooked, went to work, came home at the end of the day, 6 or 7, meditated, cleaned, and then made fresh rotis for everyone. Such a personal sacrifice, like such an amazing woman. I grew up eating vegan, healthy, Indian food. And I, at the time, similar to you, I was like, this is like gruel. I hate this. I want something different. But I look back and I'm like, wow, my mom gifted me with so much nutrition at a young age. And I'm so grateful to her.
Yeah, I have a very similar experience. I remember my mom like getting up early, starting the pressure cooker, doing all these things. And I'm just like, man, like even for myself right now, grown ass adult,
yes,
I cannot do all that. I mean, they're heroes truly, to be able to infuse that nutrition in us, And one thing though, that's kind of funny. And I just realized this as you said that was that even though I kind of wanted like, the hot dogs and all the other processed American foods, there was a part of me that was like, you know what though? My brother and I never really get sick. And all these white kids are getting sick.
Wow, the awareness.
And there was something where I was like, maybe it's the food. I think there was like a part of me that was like, there must be something that we're doing, that might be different. And I'm not here to, do some type of like nutritional study or anything, but it was a curiosity that did exist when I was a child.
I'm so glad that you're bringing that up because I agree. Even though there were times where I was really trying to subvert and rebel, there was also times where I was like, I have a culture. I love my culture. And I also love that my mom, who's made yogurt like my whole life, and more recently, she told me that like her yogurt didn't set, so she made it into cheese. And I was like, the way she talked about it to me was so dynamic. I was like, wow, my mom is a skilled cheesemaker.
Yeah.
But I also appreciate that my mom did embrace things like sharp cheddar cheese, and she would keep a block in the fridge. And after school, she would like sometimes just cut off pieces and we would eat it together. Oh. So I know I had a cool mom.
That's so sweet. I wish I could have had a block of cheddar cheese with my mom. That would have been pretty generative for our relationship, I feel.
Well, it's not too late.
It's not too late. Mom, if you're listening,
let's eat some cheese together.
Let's eat some cheese together.
Anyways, I hope that you all eat some cheese. Thank you so much for listening to our episode. And j'adore fromage. What else to say?
Yes. And remember, we have one more bonus episode that will only be on our Ko-fi page. So please subscribe so you can hear this next surprise.
Final episode.
Bye.
Yay, bye.
We really want to know what you think about Earthworm Slumber Party. So send us an email at earthwormslumberparty@gmail.com. You can also watch full episodes of this podcast on YouTube, so find us there.
We also have ways to work with us. Nisha is throwing free parties in Nisha Land. If you want to get down with Nisha, join her Notes from Nisha Land newsletter community to get the info.
And Opulence has a free gift for you, a beautiful and magical care plan creation guide that you can find on their Substack. And if you want to find us on Instagram, I'm at Healing Hype Girl, and Opulence is at Opulence Abundance.
We have a serious ask for you all, okay? Listen up. If you love Earthworm Slumber Party, if this podcast has changed your life and you want to see the show continue and to continue to hear our stories, then we need your support. You can go to ko-fi.com/Earthworm Slumber Party. Again, that's ko-fi.com/Earthworm Slumber Party. You can go there, learn a little about the show, and make a one-time or recurring donation. This donation will actually unlock a special episode. Your support makes this show possible, and all of this info is in our show notes.
Earthworm Slumber Party is hosted by Opulence Abundance and Nisha Modi, edited and scored by Adrien Garbar, and produced by Dalya Guerin.